Hello, hello. We're joined today by Larissa Wood from Mela. And Mela does a lot of stuff with cotton, and we thought Larissa could share all their knowledge with us today. Larissa, please tell us a little bit about you and about Mela.
Thank you for having us for the interview. My name is Larissa, and I am Sustainable Supply Chain Manager at Mela. We are based in Kassel in Germany, and we are a fair fashion brand that makes clothing, bags and accessories, and also a recent addition is the homeware category. And what makes us special is that our whole product range is made with 100% fair trade and GOTS, so organic certified cotton. And at least in Germany, there's no other brand that has that same level of certification.
It sounds really amazing. So what makes GOTS so special?
GOTS, ensures that an external certifier comes to certify the whole of the organic supply chain. So from the cotton farming at the beginning, it then feeds into GOTS, making sure that certain chemicals are not used, for example, in the production stage, such as dyeing. And also it actually has quite a strong emphasis recently on social side of the standards as well.
I've heard that GOTS is quite hard to get, and it's a lot of work to maintain. Why is that? What makes it such a tough certification to have and to hold?
I think it's pretty strict when it comes to the medicinal materials you're allowed to use. So it can limit you in terms of your material use and your design. So I think maybe lots of brands maybe want to bring in other materials, more polyester content, for example. It's relatively strict there. Then we have to track everything from suppliers throughout the whole supply chain, but also chemical testing is done. It's a lot of documentation in that way as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. It comes with some restrictions, but of course, these restrictions also make sure that things are done in a certain way and that you can prove that your company, Mela, is doing it according to these rules, right? So it gives consumers trust.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just simply using organic cotton and stating that, but it's actually demonstrating externally that we follow these strict guidelines.
So with GOTS, you can certify products, but they also certify factories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our factories in our supply chain have to undergo an annual audit for GOTS, which covers chemical management, health and safety, social aspects. Again, not everyone's aware of that. And we ourselves annually also, as a brand, undergo a GOTS audit where they look at, for example, the salaries that we are paying. Are we covering living wages? Those kind of things is looked at as well.
What's the biggest upside of having a GOTS certified factory?
I would say especially the chemical management side of things is really important for us, restricting the really harmful chemicals and the fact that this is then tested as well. So we can independently verify the harmful items for both us wearing the textiles, but also the people handling the chemicals, that they are not in use in the factories that we're working with.
So it's a health thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've heard once that all natural fibers have a minimum of 29% of chemicals in them, even cotton. Is this something you ever heard about?
I haven't heard that same fact before. Of course, organic, according to GOTS standards, does not mean that no chemicals are used. You know, we're not using food colorings as dyes. It simply restricts the more harmful chemicals. So yeah, if we want to have textiles that behave in the way that we're used to, where the dyes are not completely washing out when it rains or something, and chemicals still have to be used, of course.
But then it's extra important and extra nice that you have the GOTS certification, because then it makes sure that these chemicals that are used are not toxic, because we are wearing them on our body and our skin is the biggest organ we have, right? There are certain companies in the world that do produce a lot of clothing with chemicals in them that are harmful and that are literally unhealthy to wear. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, that your skin comes in contact with these materials all the time, the whole day. And it's really important that, that we're using proper treatments of materials instead of very toxic ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually go beyond the testing requirements of GOTS, and we have an independent lab that tests each color and each design for every order that we make. So we're going well over 2% of order volume we spend on testing that to guarantee that what we are saying is actually happening.
2%, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of testing. Amazing.
This is not because we don't trust our partners, but we want to guarantee it. Also, I mean, mostly we pass with flying colors, but sometimes things happen where even our partners have been surprised that that some measures have come out slightly above what's allowed, and then we together with our partners come up with the best solution for these cases.
Yeah, but that's important, right? That we see the people we work with as partners so we can, work together to find solutions, because
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that, it's a business of people, everybody working together, from the farmers until the people who are actually, creating the products or, selling them, like Mela is. So it's really important to see it as a human experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I like my job.
I can imagine. Well, talking about the human experience, there's a lot of people who feel that producing locally is really important. But you have GOTS certified factories in India. Why did you choose India?
Yeah. So, firstly, we have nothing against made in Europe, but actually, most of the world's organic certified cotton is grown in India. So, approximately 70% of it, and not 70% of all cotton, but of fair trade and organic certified. And then we consciously made a decision to then keep the rest of the supply chain in India itself as well, mainly because we want to add more value in the country where our raw material comes from, rather than, let's say, extracting the raw material and then adding value in terms of jobs and everything else in Europe itself. And also because our supply chains are fair trade, it also means that we can add environmental and social impact in India itself as well. A little bit second to that, of course, keeping all production steps in the country where our raw material comes from can also reduce transportation routes, or at least production steps, meaning that everything happens in India and then it can be shipped directly to us in Germany rather than maybe, say, over Portugal.
The thing is, right, giving back, or at least working together with the country and actually adding value there, probably they need it generally more than, the people in Europe do. And it's great to give, to work together with them and, create some value there.
I think especially economically and socially and environmentally there, to say that we're part of supply chains that are showing that things can be done also with the environment and the people in mind.
And I think a lot of people forget that when you say produced in Europe, that a lot of the materials still come from a different place, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about how you are inspired by cradle-to-cradle design and manufacturing. Is that something they take into account in the factory as well? And how does it work?
It kind of forms the basis of everything that we do. That is also definitely part of the day-to-day work with our producers. So Cradle to Cradle is a circularity standard, you could say. And basically, we design our products with Cradle to Cradle, or with circularity in mind. That's the first thing. And with these principles, so that means that they can either be returned into nature safely and biodegrade, for example, or they can be recycled and made into new products. That's this concept of circularity in a nutshell. And for us, the basis of this is that all our products are 100% cotton and that they're organic. And so we don't use any mixed materials, because if we were to add, for example, a certain percentage of synthetic fibers or even another natural fiber, it would make it much more difficult or nearly impossible for that material to be recycled, or in many cases to degrade as well. But then we've gone quite a lot further in terms of the product design together with our suppliers in India. So one of the biggest achievements that we're really proud of in the recent years is that we have moved from using polyester sewing thread, which is absolute industry standard, to using 100% cotton sewing thread in all our products, and which again makes it's better for the circularity of the product as well.
Because if you mix two different types of products, it's really hard to recycle, right?
Yeah, so you would still be able to recycle an item with a small percentage of, let's say, the sewing thread, that's a small percentage of polyester. But the more it is, the harder it becomes to get a good quality material at the end of it. And of course, we want to avoid the use of petroleum-based materials in our products. And at the beginning, the producer that we first suggested this to was a little bit like, okay, we don't do that with anyone else. I'm not sure if that's possible, but definitely interested. And then we tested it first with one t-shirt, and we just tested there to see if there would be any kind of quality issues if we use the cotton sewing thread. And now, a few years later, we're using it in all our products, and we don't see any difference in quality. The next nice thing is that we've been approached by other producers who in the same factory with the same supplier, and they're also now switching to cotton sewing threads. And then other aspects in terms of circularity designer, for example, we use cotton interlinings. That's the padding used for example, in the collars of shirts or in the button rows to give them extra strength. And the latest change that we're making, which will come out in products in 2026, is that we now use cotton padding in our backpacks or in our small pouches instead of synthetic polyester-based padding that we used to use. And I think, just to close the loop in that sense, another exciting project that we'll be launching in 2026 is that we're going to be starting a recycling program. So given that our products are made for circularity, we now actually want to make them circular and take them back and close the loop in that sense. And so we'll be taking back end-of-life textiles, so ones that cannot be repaired or resold. And then we have a recycling partner in Germany who we'll be working with for mechanical recycling, so making new yarn out of old textiles with a certain percentage of virgin cotton added to it as well.
That's great news. It's a lot of brands, they shout from the rooftops that their products are recyclable, but they are not necessarily made from recycled materials. Generally, they aren't, because it's really hard. But you're trying it. Can you tell me a little bit more about that process? Because are you going to only accept things from Mela, or are you going to accept from different brands? Does it matter? What's your take on it?
To your first comment, I think, of course, it's important that's the first step, to at least make them recyclable, because the process of recycling is still something that's developing and that needs development. So we get to a good solution in that sense. Good work to every brand that already makes it possible in terms of how they design their products. Now we will be only taking back Mela products. At the moment, this is how we're starting, because our products, we know where our cotton is coming from. We know that it's organic certified. And at the moment, we want to keep this kind of purity, in a sense, to be able to then go forward with that if we use it in new products that we then make ourselves. So if we take items from other brands and don't put any restrictions there, we kind of don't know what we're putting into potentially new products as well.
Yeah, it's bullshit in, bullshit out, right?
Exactly. But this whole process of the recycling program is something that is still in the making, that will develop there. And we have been in touch with other brands that have GOTS certified cotton, for example. And I'm not saying that in order to maybe reach larger volumes that we need in order to be able to do recycling, that we will never also accept items from other brands as well. But this is the way that we're starting. And our vision, but it's not possible at the moment, is that we could even have a GOTS certified recycled cotton textile at the end. But at the moment, GOTS doesn't allow this.
So you would be creating a new certification basically yourselves, together with maybe GOTS.
Yeah. Let's see if GOTS will make some changes there as well to allow for that.
That's exciting. So a little bit more on the recycling material. So for instance, if I have a sweater and it's a Mela sweater and I give it to you, could you make a new sweater from that one sweater, or would you need more sweaters? So indeed, how would
Yeah.
you be able to scale production to such a level that you can actually produce stuff with it?
Yes, we wouldn't be able to make another sweater only from two Mela sweaters, let's say, or something.
So you need two for one, basically.
Well, at the moment, industry standards are to use approximately 30% recycled cotton to about 70% virgin materials.
Okay.
But if our cotton is very pure, which it is, in terms of, not being mixed with the polyester sewing thread, then with our recycling partner, we're working on testing products that would go up to 50, maybe even 60% of recycled proportion.
It's almost double.
Yeah, exactly. That would be great.
And why is this, by the way? Why is it only 30% and not, for instance, 100?
It's because, of course, when you mechanically recycle and shred a thread, then the quality and the length of the cotton that you get out of it is not as good as a virgin fiber. And in order to get the products that we would want and the quality that we're used to at the moment, we have to add also a certain percentage of the virgin fiber.
You could say that materials like cotton are not forever recyclable, right? You can use it once, maybe twice, but the quality goes down with every time you recycle it, basically.
Yes, exactly. That was my thought. And linking into the previous question, which was why make in India and why not Europe? If we go down this route and are able to, or that we actually want to make our own new products from the garn that we produce, there we will then, of course, develop a supply chain in Europe, because we wouldn't want our garn back to India for it to be sewn there. So there's lots of exciting possibilities that will come from this.
And how is it that Mela is such a front runner on all these developments, like using cotton lining instead of polyester, which is oil, which people don't always realize, right?
Good question.
It's really exciting. You're doing amazing things, right?
I think it's that we were founded because of this, because we want to be a front runner, because we want to make a change in the industry as a whole and show that it's possible, and to even create products that are even affordable as well. So it's possible at a price that many people can afford. And so that's like in our nature, and it's in the nature of every person that also works for Mela, from the product designers to even people working in the logistics. That's kind of why we're there in a way. And of course, good partners that are willing to try these new things and go along with us. Without our partners in India, it wouldn't be possible.
No, you always need to, again, it's a people business and you need partners to get stuff done. But circling back to the pricing thing, a lot of people think sustainable fashion is expensive, too expensive maybe. And sometimes it is indeed more expensive than fast fashion. Of course, then the costs are paid elsewhere, generally by people or animals or nature, Mother Earth. What's your take on, does sustainable fashion need to be more expensive? Because some are like way more expensive, and some say it's not possible to produce at a lower cost. And other brands like Mela, they are really taking the charge on making more sustainable fashion affordable, which is very inspiring.
I guess one of the things would be that we do have a focus, you could say, a little bit more on basics. This means that from the design, we're kind of simplifying things, but also in terms of like how many collections we have, this is all kept a little bit more concise. And then it's also the mindset of the company. We show that it's possible, but I don't know. I would also like to look into the other fair fashion brands and see what their limitations are. It's certainly a struggle to really stay at the forefront, to keep adding improvements without always pushing up the price. These things that I mentioned, the cotton sewing thread, the cotton interlinings, they're all more expensive, but we don't want to hand over all the responsibility in terms of the price to our customers. And we're keeping relatively clean and fair margins as well in terms of us as a brand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Innovation generally, like you just said, it comes by working with partners. You've inspired other brands producing in your partner in India to also make better choices when it comes to certain materials. And you just mentioned that you would love to look into, like how other brands operate? Do you think it would be a thing that Mela starts collaborating more with brands and helping them improve, but also learning from each other? Because together, generally, we're stronger than alone. Is that something Mela is looking into?
Yeah, we do collaborate even now already. So especially our founder and our CEO, one of our CEOs, Henning Siedentop, he's in constant contact with some of the other German fair fashion brands, and via our suppliers. Yeah, we're in contact, especially with a New Zealand fair fashion brand. These are the ones that where we had the exchange on the cotton sewing thread. I think there is quite a lot of exchange in the fair fashion industry. And when we were, for example, thinking about our recycling program, we also have in mind that we then do want to work with other like-minded brands. So the exchange is there. I think there's always room for improvement, but I, for example, haven't worked at one of the other fair fashion brands myself, so I don't have that insight on a personal level.
So we've been talking about cotton and how you go about it quite a bit. And I think it would be fun to look at a few of the pieces. And you're wearing one now,
Yes.
right? I would love to, yeah, there it is. Can you tell me a little bit about why this particular piece is one of your favorites?
This we call Boomer. So all our products have an Indian name. It's a knitted cardigan. And I really like this one actually because of the design. I think that it's one of our cooler items. It has these kind of balloon sleeves and it's slightly cropped as well. And it just goes with everything. Yeah. So for me, it's also, we want to be cool as well. You know, we want to have nice designs, not just about the social and environmental side. It's also making things that people want to wear and like wearing.
So when you said earlier that, you're keeping your designs also a little bit more basic, that doesn't, it doesn't show. It's a great looking cardigan, right?
Yeah, you're right.
It's like you said, with sleeves, it's not very straightforward. So apparently you can still create very beautiful, interesting designs whilst keeping it more, manageable when it comes to the sustainable side of it and the
Yeah.
production side of it.
There are so many possibilities, and we've tried out a lot of different things as well. And recently we're coming a little bit more back into the basics. For example, we even had the world's first and only fair trade and GOTS certified sneaker, which was a great project, and it took a lot of innovation, but unfortunately that just didn't kick off in the way that we needed it. So this
Okay.
category is closed, for example. Even trousers, we're now moving away from that. But we see great potential with homeware and socks, for example.
So why are you moving away from these categories? Are they just too hard to produce?
The production is, in terms of the sneaker, that's a whole category in itself. This is really quite something different with the rubber sole, for example. So we're using a different natural product. We even had a supply chain in Sri Lanka for that, not in India. But the sales in these categories were not what we needed it to be in comparison to our other sales. Yeah. And of course, in order to have this affordability, we do rely on certain like minimum order quantities as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can't produce for just one pair of socks, for instance. Talking about socks, one of your other favorite products from Mela. What's so amazing about these socks?
Yeah, these socks. So actually, I was saying that all our products are 100% organic cotton, but that's not quite true because the sock is our only item that is not. So it's 97% GOTS and fair trade cotton and 3% Roika elastane. And that is because you can't really get a sock to do what we want it to do without having any stretch in it. And for a long time, we wouldn't have touched a category like this. But then we were looking into some more innovative solutions for a sustainable stretch material for a sustainable elastane. And we now are using Roika. It's a Cradle-to-Cradle, so a C2C certified degradable elastane. And this would still then fit with our C2C design principles.
So it would be recyclable, even if you combine the two with the cotton.
3% is anyway not so hard, so it's recyclable, and also degradable.
It's quite unique, right? I don't see this a lot, this material yet, at least.
It's not used a lot. There are some others who are Cradle-to-Cradle certified who are using Broiker as well, but it is pretty unique. Even GOTS hadn't really heard of it before.
Wow. Again, learning together. Great. Okay, lastly, your last favorite product of Mela, bedding. It's actually quite a popular product on Shop Like You Give It as well.
I think for me especially, but I guess for everyone on a personal level, we spend a significant amount of our day in between our sheets. Yeah. So of course, ensuring that this material that we're lying on is healthy for our skin, like you mentioned earlier, but also for the people and the planet. This is really important. And in terms of the amount of cotton that goes into it, it's obviously a very large amount. So we can make quite a big difference in terms of the amount of cotton that we buy and that goes into making these products.
Yeah, of course, because if other brands would, for instance, make a bedding with non-organic cotton, then that would be a large piece of cotton that would be less sustainable. So you're actually making more impact when you're creating larger pieces, right?
Yeah, in terms of the kilograms of the raw material purchased, or then when it comes to maybe the recycling or the end of life side of things as well.
So I have one more question. I was wondering, what claim about cotton or your cotton products will you never make because it would be misleading?
We do not claim that cotton behaves in exactly the same way as, let's say, a synthetic material, for example, polyester. And these also have some very great functions in certain product categories for sure. And also because our products are GOTS certified, that again means it's not just the cotton that we have to work with and that properties, but also the fact that we cannot use certain restricted chemicals or maybe some finishings that are used to give a certain amount of water resistance. Yeah, and we wouldn't claim that, for example, our bed sheets come out of the washing completely wrinkle free, or that the stretch return on 100% organic cardigan is exactly the same. But we try to focus on the positive sides of what cotton does give us, which is so much. I mean, the breathability, the huge amount of flexibility, the many different things that you can do with cotton. We have cotton cord, we have cotton silk, knit, so many different kinds of like woven fabrics, these kind of things that it's healthy for us to wear as well. So we kind of would like a little bit our consumers to also understand some of these differences and what limitations there might be, even though I think this is not really a huge reason not to wear cotton, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, focus on the positives because it does have a lot of positives. And what I find very interesting when it comes to the weaving of cotton, the way you weave it, it can feel like a totally different material even.
Absolutely.
I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not a product designer, and the first time our product team showed me cotton silk, I was like, "What? This is not real silk," you know? Or even the canvas that we use on our bags or our shoes. I say that we don't use any finishings for water resistance, but cotton can be quite water resistant as well. I mean, it's not 100%, but I certainly ride through the rain with my cotton backpack and the stuff inside is not getting wet. It's really has some great functions.
That's great. Yeah, amazing. And last question, one more thing. Are there any sustainable myths going around that a lot of people might even believe that you feel that is very much greenwashing and not true?
Yeah, I like this question. So the myth that cotton is unsustainable because it uses too much water, and that some brands use this possibly for greenwashing the use of synthetic fibers such as polyester, while ignoring, of course, the fact that polyester is based on fossil fuels, sheds microplastic, and is not degradable. And here, the fact is actually that 60% of the world's cotton fields are completely rain-fed. And then there's, of course, some that are mixed, that are irrigated and rain-fed. But 60% is those that are completely rain-fed. And in India, it's even close to 70% that, due to the good conditions with the monsoon, which of course is becoming less reliable in times of climate change. And then another interesting thing that I read about this is that only has 2% of the Chinese cotton fields are rain-fed as opposed to irrigated.
2% only?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. 2% in China in comparison to close to 70% in India. So here for me, what this shows is how important transparency and traceability is, and that we know where our products are coming from. And because even this nuance makes quite a big difference.
It really depends on where it comes from. So not all cotton, not all organic cotton is made equal.
Yeah, exactly. Not all organic cotton is equal. Yeah. And for example, of course, the other large producer of cotton is in the US, and there we have nearly only GMO cotton that's produced there.
Genetically
So this
modified.
leaves India as the kind of the best place to go, really.
All right. Well, good for India. Well, Larissa, thank you so much for joining us today and explaining how Mela goes about cotton. I learned a lot, and I'm wishing you a lovely day and hopefully speak soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.